Ryan Carter used to be a man who respected his wife. At least that was what Elena used to believe. Years ago, when Ryan was still fighting to build his company, he used to come home exhausted but grateful. He would drop his bag on the floor, smile at her, and say the same thing every night. "We're going to make it one day, Elena. I promise." Back then, Elena believed every word. She had supported him through everything. The sleepless nights. The endless meetings. The stress of trying to build something from nothing. But success has a way of changing people. And the day Ryan Carter became a billionaire, something inside him changed. At first, the change was small. Ryan started coming home later. His phone was always in his hand. Messages appeared on his screen at all hours of the night. When Elena asked about it, he always gave the same answer. Business. She believed him. Until the night she realized the truth. Ryan had just returned home from another party. He walked into the apartment smelling of expensive cologne and alcohol. "Elena," he said casually while loosening his tie, "you should come to these events more often." Elena looked up from the couch. "You used to say you hated those parties." Ryan laughed. "That was before I owned half the people in the room." Elena frowned slightly. Ryan walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. "You know what I realized tonight?" he continued. "What?" she asked. Ryan turned and looked at her with a smile that felt unfamiliar. "Power is addictive." He took a sip from the glass. "When people know you're the richest man in the room, they treat you differently." Elena studied his face. Ryan had always been confident. But tonight something felt different. His confidence had turned into arrogance. Ryan sat down and checked his phone again. A message appeared. He smiled slightly. Elena noticed. "Who's that?" she asked. Ryan locked the phone instantly. "No one." Then he stood up. "I'm going out again." Elena looked surprised. "You just came back." Ryan shrugged. "Another meeting." He grabbed his jacket. Elena watched him walk toward the door. Before leaving, Ryan turned back briefly. "You should get used to this, Elena." "Used to what?" she asked. Ryan smirked. "The lifestyle of a billionaire." Then he walked out. The door closed behind him. Elena remained seated in silence. Something inside her told her that Ryan Carter was no longer the man she married. Later that night, Ryan arrived at a private lounge in Manhattan. The place was filled with powerful businessmen and wealthy socialites. Ryan liked places like this. In rooms like these, everyone knew his name. And tonight, someone else noticed him too. A woman in a red dress sat near the bar. Her name was Vanessa. She watched Ryan approach with a confident smile. Ryan leaned beside her. "Ryan Carter," he said. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "I know." That answer made Ryan smile. They talked. They laughed. One drink turned into two. Then three. Ryan didn't notice the time passing. And he didn't care. Across the city, Elena stood alone near the window of their apartment. Her phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up slowly. Unknown number. She opened the message. The words were simple. "You deserve better than him." Elena frowned. Another message arrived. "You always did." Her fingers hesitated above the screen. She typed one question. "Who is this?" A reply appeared moments later. "Someone who has been watching for a long time." Elena's heart beat slightly faster. Before she could respond again, one final message appeared. "When the time comes, you won't be alone." Across Manhattan, inside a quiet office overlooking the city, a tall man lowered his phone. His name was Victor Moretti. In public, Victor was known as a powerful businessman. But in the shadows of the United States underworld, people knew the truth. Victor Moretti was a mafia boss. One of the most powerful men in America. His advisor stood nearby. "You've been watching her for years," the man said. Victor looked out over the glowing city skyline. "Yes." "And now?" Victor's voice remained calm. "Now we wait. Because sooner or later, Ryan Carter's arrogance would destroy his own marriage. And when that day came, Victor Moretti would finally step into Elena's life. For the first time in years, Elena Carter began noticing things she used to ignore. Ryan had always been ambitious. His business demanded long hours, late meetings, and constant travel. That was the life she had accepted when she married him. But this felt different. Ryan no longer tried to explain where he went. He no longer bothered to hide his phone when messages appeared. And most of all, he had stopped looking at her the way he once did. The quiet warmth that used to exist between them had disappeared. In its place was something cold. Something distant. One evening, Elena sat alone in the living room of their Manhattan penthouse while the city lights flickered through the tall windows. Ryan had told her he would be home early that night. It was already past midnight. Her phone buzzed softly on the table. She picked it up. A message from Ryan appeared. "Working late. Don't wait up." Elena stared at the words. Then she slowly set the phone down again. 5 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Another message. But this one was not from Ryan. It was from the same unknown number that had contacted her the night before. "He's not working." Elena felt her chest tighten slightly. A second message followed. "He's at the Grand Crown Lounge in Manhattan." Her eyes remained fixed on the screen. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she picked up her coat. 30 minutes later, Elena walked into the Grand Crown Lounge. The place was filled with music, laughter, and expensive perfume. Powerful businessmen and socialites filled the room. No one noticed her enter. Until she saw him. Ryan Carter stood near the bar. And he was not alone. Vanessa stood beside him. Her red dress caught the light as she leaned closer to Ryan. Her hand rested comfortably on his arm. Ryan laughed at something she said. Then he leaned down and whispered something into her ear. Vanessa smiled. Elena stopped walking. For a moment, everything around her became silent. She had suspected the truth for weeks. But seeing it with her own eyes felt different. Ryan Carter had not noticed her yet. Vanessa saw her first. The smile on her face didn't disappear. Instead, it grew wider. She leaned closer to Ryan and whispered something to him. Ryan turned slowly. His eyes met Elena's. For a brief second, his expression changed. Surprise. But it vanished quickly. Ryan Carter walked toward her calmly. "Elena," he said casually. Elena looked at him. "You said you were working." Ryan shrugged. "This is business." Elena glanced toward Vanessa. "Business?" Ryan didn't even bother pretending. "Relax," he said. "It's just a drink." Vanessa walked over and stood beside him. She looked Elena up and down slowly. "So this is your wife," Vanessa said. Ryan didn't respond. Elena remained silent. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. "I expected someone more interesting." Ryan chuckled quietly. "Elena prefers quiet evenings," he said. Vanessa laughed. Ryan looked back at his wife. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Elena stared at him. "I came because you lied." Ryan sighed. "Elena, you're overreacting." Vanessa leaned closer to Ryan again. "You told me she was boring," Vanessa said playfully. Ryan smirked. "I did." The words landed like a blade. But Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply looked at the man she had spent years supporting. "You're humiliating yourself," she said quietly. Ryan's expression hardened. "No," he replied. "I'm living the life I worked for." Vanessa wrapped her arm around Ryan's shoulder. "You deserve someone exciting," she said. Ryan smiled. "That's exactly what I told her." Elena stood there silently. For a moment, Ryan seemed almost disappointed that she wasn't reacting emotionally. "You should go home," he said. Elena looked at him one last time. Then she turned and walked away. Ryan watched her leave without saying another word. Across the city, inside his private office, Victor Moretti stood near the window. The glow of Manhattan spread across the skyline below him. His phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down. A message from one of his men. She just left the lounge. Victor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked out over the city. His advisor spoke quietly. "So it finally happened." Victor nodded. "Yes." "And now?" Victor's voice remained calm. "Now we wait." His advisor frowned. "You've already waited years." Victor looked down at the message again. "Yes." He placed the phone on the table. "But tonight." He paused. everything begins to change. Across Manhattan, Elena stepped out of the lounge and into the cold night air. For a moment, she stood there on the sidewalk. The city lights reflected in her eyes. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "I told you that you deserved better." Elena didn't reply. She simply stared at the glowing skyline. Then another message appeared. "And now the man who betrayed you is about to learn something important." Elena's fingers tightened around the phone. One final message appeared. The woman he lost was never meant for him. Across the city, Victor Moretti watched the same skyline. His voice was quiet. Soon. Because Ryan Carter had just made the mistake that Victor had been waiting for. And from that moment forward, Ryan Carter's life would never be the same again. The night Elena saw Ryan with Vanessa changed everything. But when she returned to the penthouse, she did not cry. She did not scream. Instead, she sat quietly on the couch, staring at the dark skyline outside the window. For years she had tried to understand Ryan. Tried to support him. Tried to believe that the man she married was still there somewhere. But the man she saw at the lounge was not the same person. That man had looked at her like she was an inconvenience. A problem. Something he wanted to remove from his life. Around 2 in the morning, the door of the penthouse opened. Ryan walked in. He looked completely relaxed. Almost amused. Elena did not move from the couch. Ryan loosened his tie and walked to the bar. "You shouldn't have come to the lounge tonight," he said casually. Elena looked at him. "You lied to me." Ryan poured himself a drink. "Elena, I didn't lie," he replied calmly. "I just didn't think it was necessary to explain everything." She stared at him quietly. Ryan turned toward her. "You embarrassed yourself," he continued. Elena frowned slightly. "Embarrassed myself?" Ryan shrugged. "You walked into a private business gathering and created a scene." "I didn't create anything," Elena said. Ryan took a sip from his glass. "Elena, let's stop pretending." The words were cold. Straightforward. He walked closer. "Our marriage hasn't worked for a long time." The silence between them grew heavy. Elena studied his face. "So that's what this is about," she said softly. Ryan didn't deny it. "You've changed," she continued. Ryan laughed slightly. "Of course I have." He spread his arms. "I'm a billionaire now." Elena's voice remained calm. "And that means you replace your wife?" Ryan's expression hardened. "It means I outgrew this marriage." The words hung in the air. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan continued. "Elena, you were perfect when my life was small." He leaned against the table. "But now everything is different." Elena said nothing. Ryan's voice became sharper. "You don't belong in my world anymore." The sentence landed like a hammer. Still, Elena remained composed. "And Vanessa does?" she asked. Ryan smirked slightly. "At least she understands the lifestyle." Elena slowly stood up. Her calmness seemed to irritate him. "You should be angry," Ryan said. "Most wives would be screaming right now." Elena looked at him. "Would that change anything?" Ryan didn't answer. Because the truth was clear. Nothing would change his mind. Ryan walked toward the large window overlooking Manhattan. "I've already spoken to my lawyers," he said. Elena's eyes narrowed slightly. "You planned this?" Ryan nodded. "The divorce papers will be ready tomorrow." The room fell silent. Ryan turned back toward her. "You'll be taken care of financially," he added. "You won't need to worry about money." Elena stared at him. "You think this is about money?" Ryan shrugged. "Isn't everything?" For the first time that night, Elena felt something shift inside her. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. Ryan Carter no longer saw her as a person. He saw her as a contract he wanted to terminate. She picked up her coat. Ryan watched her. "You're leaving?" "Yes." "Where will you go?" Elena looked at him calmly. "That's none of your concern." Ryan smirked. "You'll come back," he said confidently. "Elena, you've lived with my wealth for years." He gestured around the luxurious penthouse. "You won't survive without it." Elena walked toward the door. Ryan spoke again. "Tomorrow we sign the papers." Elena paused for a moment. Then she nodded. "Tomorrow." She opened the door and stepped out. Ryan Carter believed that was the end of the conversation. But the moment Elena walked into the elevator, her phone buzzed. She looked down. The unknown number again. A message appeared. "Are you leaving him tonight?" Elena stared at the screen. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. But something inside her already knew the truth. She typed a short reply. "Yes." Across Manhattan, Victor Moretti stood inside his private office. The city lights glowed behind him. His phone buzzed in his hand. He looked at the message. His advisor watched him closely. "Well?" the man asked. Victor read Elena's reply again. Then he smiled slightly. "She finally left." The advisor crossed his arms. "You've waited years for this." Victor nodded. "Yes." "And what happens now?" Victor looked out over the skyline. For years he had watched Elena Carter from a distance. Not out of obsession, but out of respect. He knew what kind of woman she was. Strong, loyal, intelligent. And he also knew something else. Ryan Carter had no idea what he had just lost. Victor picked up his phone again. Then he sent Elena one final message. Across the city, Elena stepped out of the building and into the cold New York night. Her phone buzzed again. She looked down. The message read, "Good." A second message appeared. "Now it's my turn to take care of you." Elena frowned slightly. Before she could respond, another message followed. Ryan Carter believed he was the most powerful man in this city. Elena read the words carefully. Then the final message appeared. "But he has no idea who you are about to meet." Across Manhattan, Victor Moretti looked out over the glowing skyline. His voice was quiet. "Soon." Because Ryan Carter believed he had just ended a marriage. But in reality, he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, Ryan Carter woke up feeling satisfied. For the first time in years, the penthouse felt quiet. No questions. No silent stares. No Elena watching him with that calm expression he had begun to dislike. Ryan stretched and walked into the living room. The city skyline looked the same as always. Nothing had changed. At least that was what he believed. He poured himself a drink and checked his phone. A message from his lawyer appeared. "The divorce papers are ready." Ryan smiled slightly. Everything was moving exactly as he wanted. Later that afternoon, Ryan sat inside a large conference room at his office building. His lawyers placed the documents on the table. "Elena Carter has already signed," one of them said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "She signed already?" "Yes." Ryan leaned back in his chair. That had been easier than expected. He picked up the pen and signed the final page. Just like that, the marriage was over. Ryan Carter stood up, feeling strangely relieved. His phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. "Dinner tonight?" Ryan typed back quickly. "Of course." That evening, Ryan walked into one of the most luxurious restaurants in Manhattan. Vanessa was already waiting for him. She stood up and kissed him on the cheek. "So," she said with a playful smile, "the divorce is final?" Ryan nodded. "Yes." Vanessa lifted her glass. "To new beginnings." Ryan raised his glass as well. "To better ones." They talked and laughed as the restaurant slowly filled with wealthy guests. But halfway through the evening, something unusual happened. The entire room suddenly became quiet. Several people turned their heads toward the entrance. Ryan frowned slightly. "What's going on?" Vanessa followed the direction of everyone's gaze. Then her expression changed. Two large men in black suits entered first. Their presence alone made people step aside. Behind them walked a tall man with calm confidence. The room seemed to shift around him. Ryan recognized him instantly. Victor Moretti. Even powerful businessmen knew his name. But few people ever spoke it openly. Victor Moretti was a man whose influence reached far beyond business. Ryan watched him carefully. "What is he doing here?" Vanessa whispered. But Victor was not looking at Ryan. He was looking at someone else. Ryan turned toward the entrance again. And then he saw her. Elena Carter walked into the restaurant. She looked calm, confident, stronger than Ryan had ever seen her. Victor stepped beside her. The entire restaurant watched in silence. Vanessa whispered nervously, "Why is she with him?" Ryan's jaw tightened. Victor pulled out a chair for Elena. She sat beside him at a table across the room. People began whispering immediately. Ryan could hear fragments of the conversations. Is that Victor Moretti? That's Ryan Carter's ex-wife. How do they know each other? Ryan stood up. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Ryan, don't. But he ignored her. Ryan walked across the restaurant toward Elena's table. Victor looked up calmly as he approached. Ryan stopped beside them. Elena, he said coldly. Elena looked at him. Her expression was calm. You're here with him? Ryan asked. Victor leaned back slightly in his chair. Is there a problem? Victor asked quietly. Ryan ignored him. Elena, he repeated. What is this? Elena answered calmly. Dinner. Ryan laughed sharply. With him. Victor stood up slowly. Suddenly, Ryan realized something important. Victor Moretti was taller than him. Stronger. And far more dangerous. Victor looked directly into Ryan's eyes. You should choose your tone carefully, Victor said. Ryan's confidence faltered slightly. What does this have to do with you? Ryan asked. Victor's voice remained calm. For years, I watched you, Victor said. Ryan frowned. What? Victor continued. I watched how you treated her. Elena remained silent beside him. Ryan's voice grew defensive. That's none of your business. Victor smiled slightly. It became my business the moment she left you. The meaning of those words hit Ryan immediately. Vanessa walked closer. Ryan, let's go. But Ryan didn't move. He looked at Elena again. You planned this? Elena shook her head. No. Ryan turned toward Victor. So you were just waiting? Victor nodded once. Yes. The restaurant remained completely silent. Ryan suddenly understood something that made his stomach tighten. Victor Moretti had not stolen Elena. He had simply waited. Waited for Ryan to destroy his own marriage. Ryan looked at Elena again. For the first time, doubt appeared in his eyes. Elena, he said quietly, we can talk about this. Elena stood up. Her voice remained calm. There's nothing to talk about. Ryan took a step closer. You're making a mistake. Victor's voice cut through the air. No, Victor said. She already escaped one. Ryan froze. Elena looked at Ryan one last time. The man she once loved now looked small, arrogant, and suddenly powerless. Ryan Carter had believed he was the most powerful man in every room. But tonight he had learned something different. There was always someone more powerful. Elena turned and walked toward the exit with Victor beside her. The restaurant slowly returned to life as people began whispering again. Ryan remained standing there. Vanessa touched his arm. Ryan. But he didn't respond. He watched Elena disappear through the doors. And for the first time since becoming a billionaire, Ryan Carter realized something painful. He had not just lost his wife. He had lost the best woman he would ever have. And he had lost her because of his own arrogance. Somewhere in the city, Elena Carter stepped into a new life. A life filled with respect, protection, and power. Meanwhile, Ryan Carter stood alone in the middle of a crowded restaurant. Surrounded by wealth. Surrounded by people. But completely alone.